Hello, my name is Anton Lagergren, and this is my presentation for examining issues surrounding bias and fairness in artificial intelligence algorithms used for determining likelihood of recidivism in the United States justice and penal system. This paper explores ethical issues in the use of computer algorithms used for determining if a person might commit a crime in the future. Specifically, this paper focuses on their use in the United States today. We'll start with a brief overview of the history and current use of artificial intelligence and machine learning in governments, move on to specifics about the COMPAS system, which is used in the United States justice system today. We'll dig into controversies and explore alternative methods. Skepticism surrounding the misuse of systems such as COMPAS are tied to a broader school of thought known as government by algorithm, or also known as an algocracy. Fears of autonomous legal systems date back further than the creation of COMPAS, with one notable example being the popular novel The Minority Report by Philip K. Dick, written in 1956, which was later adapted into a Steven Spielberg film starring Tom Cruise in 2002. The Minority Report is set in the year 2056, where technology has advanced to allow the development of what's called a pre-crime unit, which can predict a crime before it's even happened. If the pre-crime unit finds a person guilty, that person is subsequently labeled as a criminal and then prejudged and pre-sentenced, all without due process or a trial. All of this before a person has actually done anything in the real world. In the film, the advocates of the pre-crime unit are adamant that the system is never wrong and they operate in secrecy. And while this story is fictional, there are very real similarities, such as COMPAS not releasing their code for public review. After conducting my research, it's become my opinion that there are indeed systemic problems in the use of AI today in determining a person's chance of recidivism. But I also believe that there are steps that we can take to avoid these unethical outcomes. By the conclusion of this report, I hope that you'll feel armed enough with knowledge to begin to formulate your own opinions and have a basis for answering the following questions for yourself, which are, is this fair? And probably worse, should we be afraid? Just for a brief introduction, let's have an overview of AI in the U.S. government, which can be traced back as early as the late 1990s, when the Postal Service started using it for machine learning for routing mail and recognizing handwritten envelopes. There's many applications of AI and ML within the government, both in the US and abroad, one example being the split-up software, which is used in Australia for determining the percentage of a split after a divorce. This presentation is going to focus on AI in the US justice and legal system, and we're going to be looking specifically at the COMPAS software, which is used to evaluate the likelihood of recidivism in courts. So what is the COMPAS software? It stands for Correctional Offender Management Profiling for Alternative Sanctions. It's what's considered a decision support computer application and a case management system. Its entire purpose is to determine the likelihood of recidivism, and it's used in New York, Wisconsin, California, and Florida's Broward County. It may be used in other places by now. The way it works is that it calculates a risk score and uses that to determine whether a person has three different types of risk: pretrial risk, general recidivism, and violent risk. Pretrial is where the likelihood that someone will do something before the court date. General is just a general chance that they'll do something, and violent is the chance that they'll do something violent. So for my first argument, let's ask the question, is COMPAS fair and ethical? Well, from a technical standpoint, I'm going to go ahead and say technically no. Let's explore the precision recall trade-off, and we'll see why. To explain why I consider that COMPAS can never be 100% accurate, we need to understand some of the metrics being used in machine learning to measure accuracy, and we need to be careful with our language. Because to be clear, the term accuracy in the field of data science has a very specific meaning, and it means the percentage of correct predictions over an entire sample. In other words, how many observations did we predict correctly? That's what it means. You'll notice later why I'm drawing attention to this. And using the word accuracy is not actually accurate and can be used to elude the truth when speaking to someone that's not familiar with data science. But to analyze and dig into whether the Compass algorithm is fair and ethical from a moral standpoint, we're going to identify what would make it not fair. And I'm arguing that not fair means an innocent person getting harsh treatment when they shouldn't be, or a actual criminal getting a weak sentence when they shouldn't be. So to explore some of these definitions surrounding accuracy, we're going to be looking at an article by Towards Data Science called Explaining Precision versus Recall to Everyone. So let's start with the definition of accuracy. You'll see the formula there on your screen, and we're going to have an example that we're looking at a box of fruit that has apples and oranges. Let's say we have a machine that classifies if a fruit is an apple or not. The accuracy of the machine will be how many apples it classified correctly as apples and how many oranges it classified as not apples, divided by the total number of apples and oranges. We're going to skip over some of these technical definitions, and you can look at them if you like. What I really want to get to are the examples. Let's look at the poison apple example under recall. Let's say we're trying to detect if an apple is poison or not. In this case, we would want to reduce the number of false negatives because we hope not to miss any poison apples in the batch. Recall would be the best evaluation metric to use here because it measures how many poison apples we might have missed. We're not too concerned with mislabeling an apple as poisonous because we'd rather be safe than sorry. This is very important because we want to understand that if we don't know the precision in recall, specifically we're talking about recall, what could be happening in the machine learning algorithm for Compass is that they may be casting a wide net. They may be labeling many innocent people as risky just to be safe. So they are catching the bad guys, but a whole bunch of innocent people get labeled as bad guys as well. That's a problem. So the opposite thing is true with precision. Whereby if the precision is very high, then they're going to be catching bad guys, but a lot will be slipping through. So I'm sure to prove that their system is working, well, neither is a good option. One is not good for the company. One is letting bad guys get away, and the other is accusing a bunch of innocent people. So, and this is just how machine learning works. So, and we're going to explore a little bit later how they haven't even released the code to anyone. So this is an issue. So my overall opinion with precision and recall trade-off is that it really seems like it's coming down to a choice of picking between the lesser of two evils. Do you want unfair, where a person could be incorrectly classified as risky and therefore receive a harsher sentence or waits longer for parole than they should? Or do you want dangerous, which is a situation where an actual criminal could be classified as a non-risk, receive a lesser sentence, and then be roaming the streets? These are really kind of the choices they leave us with if you're going to use this type of algorithm for what they're doing. For my second argument, if you want to change the world, start with yourself. We're going to be examining the racial biases in Compass. And even if it were 100% accurate, there's still a problem with bias. Even if we fixed the precision recall trade-off, data has shown that Compass has miscalculated the likelihood of repeat offense with black and white defendants at nearly the same rate, but in different ways. Black defendants were incorrectly identified as potential offenders nearly twice as high, at a rate twice as high of that as white defendants. And then white defendants were incorrectly classified as low risk more often. So you have the white group saying that most of them are not risky, and then for the black group, they're saying they're all risky. This really just, this is not a technology problem. This is a human problem because you're feeding data already, racially skewed data into the system. So we have to fix the issues in our human systems before we can teach the technology how to behave in an idealistic way that we want. This really comes back to garbage in, garbage out. If we want to fix it, we have to We have to fix the data that we're feeding in the algorithm first. And remember, this is not looking at the precision recall. This is not technological data. This is something that we would have to fix from a social standpoint first. For my third argument, we're going to examine the fact that the Compass code is not transparent. You can't fix what you can't see. How are we supposed to trust code that we can't review? It's hard to trust validity results when the people who are selling the software are also the ones running the tests. We're going to have this transparency if we're ever going to achieve progress in having a wide acceptance of using this for determining the fates of people's lives. The source code is not transparent. We can't see the inner workings. How are we supposed to analyze what data is going into it? How are we supposed to look at that precision and recall that we discussed earlier? And even in research that's been done on different risk methodologies, not actually Compass, it's been found many times that, quote, frequently those investigations were completed by the same people who developed the instrument, and, quote, validity had only been examined in 1 or 2 studies. So they're writing the code, loosely testing it, publishing it, getting ready for sale. This is capitalism. That's what I'm seeing here. My fourth argument is that you cannot unhear an opinion. These scores are not being used how they're intended. Even if a score is wrong, the influence is immutable. So what am I talking about here? Well, judges have been seen to misuse the algorithm score. The intent of the Compass score is only to identify which defendants qualify for probation or alternative treatment. It is not meant to be used in that if you have a higher score, you get a longer term of imprisonment. That's not the purpose. But unfortunately, that's what has actually been happening. That's why I said you can't unhear an opinion. Mr. Eric Loomis of La Crosse County, Wisconsin, received, and I quote, he was designated through the Compass evaluation as an individual who is at high danger to the community. And following that Compass judgment, the actual judge, Scott Horn, imposed a prison term of 8 years and 6 months. To me, this is a case of what I call poisoning the well, which is a term which I have a definition on the bottom here. Unfavorable information, be it true or false, about a person is presented by another, such as, before you listen to my opponent, may I remind you that he's been in jail. Once you say something like that, there's already a dark cloud cast. That's what poisoning the well means. It casts a dark cloud on that person. So had that judge not been given the score, maybe Mr. Eric Loomis would have received a lighter sentence. And do we even know if that score was valid? My fifth argument, this one's actually a bit positive. I know I've been talking about all the bad things with Compass and the algorithms, but with data science, we know this. We wield a lot of power when it comes to algorithms and data, and ultimately it's us as people and not machines that are responsible for interpreting the results and enforcing the actions. And if we change the way that we think, here's an example. Professor Raed Ghani of Carnegie Mellon University developed an approach which basically flipped on its head the use for this algorithm. Instead of using it to punitively, cast the first stone, so to speak, and say, you're bad, our algorithm caught you, the algorithm catches you and then gets you help. Rather than using the information for punishment, local social service departments are informed so they can intervene and help the individuals before the cycle of recidivism takes hold. Professor Ghani says, I quote, "This is what predictive policing ought to be." He also goes on to caution that the trustworthiness of the social service agencies involved in the process are important, because if those same agencies turned around and gave it to policing agencies that wanted to again, catch people preemptively. It could be used for that. And everything I've covered up until this point all sounds eerily similar to what was in Minority Report. We're living in a time that I wouldn't be surprised if we'll reach something like that, or there's a possibility to reach something like that if we're not careful. Well, a few thoughts and reflections on after all of this research that I've done. I would say don't use people as test dummies. A person's life is not something we should test these systems on, because we are testing them. Here's an idea. Why don't we let Amazon grocery stores perfect the precision recall problem? They have something to lose. They have money to lose. They're not going to accuse customers of stealing. They'd lose their customers. But they still want to catch bad guys trying to steal. Let this tech giant go ahead and do that. Then once it's perfected, we can use it for these more serious applications. How about, here's another idea. Should judges be scored too? The criminals are being scored. How about the judges be scored as well? Because it's all data. I'm sure that would create some controversy within the courts. Here's an obvious one. Coders are not lawyers. They don't have a fiduciary duty to create code that is going to be in the best interest of whoever this is going to be judging. They don't hold a Juris Doctorate. They're not sworn into oath, anything like that. And further, judges aren't data scientists, and so those that are using the scores, have they even been through a 1-year boot camp for data science? I'm sure if they did that, they would either, one, realize the implications and limitations, or two, if it was imposed that they can't use the results unless they do a 1-year data science boot camp, that a lot of them would opt out of using it entirely. So I think there needs to be some guardrails put in place where we make sure that there's transparency, that these have been tested on non-critical systems, and that the people using them, we know for sure, are informed from a technical standpoint, not just the law standpoint, because now we're talking about technology, not just the law. This is a merger of the two. And I think moving forward, if this, it's going to start, hopefully, reaching this sort of blend, maybe we'll see some Juris Doctorate data science degrees. Who knows? So in conclusion, we've covered how Compass works, explored issues and controversies surrounding its use, and even identified some alternatives. So to wrap up, I'm going to leave you with this excerpt from MIT Technology Review, which I really felt captured sort of my sentiment surrounding this, all of what we've been talking about. As we've covered before, machine learning algorithms use statistics to find patterns in data. So if you feed it historical crime data, it'll pick out patterns associated with crime. But those patterns are statistical correlations, not statistical causations. If an algorithm found, for example, that low income was correlated with high recidivism, it would leave you none the wiser to whether low income actually caused crime. Does low income cause crime? It's correlated, but it's not the cause of it. But this is exactly what these risk assessment tools like Compass do. They turn correlative insights into causal scoring mechanisms. So, the same tool can be used to preemptively blame or to preventively help. It's up to us how we decide to use it. And us as data scientists moving forward, I hope this has informed you on this particular issue. Although the issues of precision recall, data skew, this is all relevant to any machine learning model. I think it just hits so much harder when it's people's lives hang in the balance. And this isn't the only algorithm where someone's lives can hang in the balance. So this was really excellent to review. This really shows how, if you're a data scientist and you're sitting there programming, the things we make and the things we do can have very serious impacts on the world. So it's up to us to understand our trade and our craft, and to act with integrity, so that we can avoid these mistakes, act in an ethical way, and hopefully try to fix some of these problems. Thank you for watching.